All right, we are back at it again. I have my coffee, and in today's video I'm gonna show you a really simple way and technique to create more depth in your images. We're gonna edit 2 raw files today, which you can download completely for free. First link in the description, so you can follow along step by step or make yourself a coffee and comfortable and just watch me edit those 2 raw files. Let's get into it. These are the 2 raw files, and don't get freaked out. One is with a heavy vignette. I didn't use the crop mode on my full frame sensor. This is a APS-C lens, and on this one it's still the same lens, but I have used the crop mode on my Sony a7 III. And we're gonna start with this one here. I'm gonna press I again to get rid of the info. On this first image we're gonna apply a base look, then I'm gonna show you the technique with the masking tools to create more depth, and then I'm gonna spice it up at the end. And on the second image here, I'm not gonna apply a base look. I'm gonna use one of my presets here, and then I'm gonna use the same technique that we're gonna use on the first one here, which will be a bit more in-depth, to create more depth in this image here as well. So let's start with the first one here. I'm gonna crop it. We're gonna go with a 4:5 aspect ratio. I'm gonna go with a heavy crop. As always, we have a bunch of pixels to work with. So first things first, let's look at the histogram and the exposure. I'm gonna close this one here and this one. Okay, it lives in the midtones as well as in the highlights, so we know we can dial it down a bit. But instead of going with the overall exposure here, I'm just gonna take the highlights down a bit because the main focus is here and it's a bit too bright. So I'm gonna get rid of it by dialing down the highlights, and then I'm gonna up the shadows a bit. And I'm just working with those 2 sliders right now. I can lean on the more underexposed side because creating depth and adding some brightness on specific parts will get rid of the overall dark look. Since the exposure is right, I'm gonna go down to the clarity and dial it back a bit. I do love it when it's a bit more softer. And this is the base exposure here. I'm gonna close the basics. The tone curve I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna get back to it, and I'm gonna go into the color mixer. And as you know me, I'm gonna say that in every single tutorial. It has a bit of yellows. We can change that to an orange tone, but maybe I'm just gonna leave it naturally yellow. A bit of orange, and we have the blue sky in the background, a perfect natural teal and orange. We're just gonna shape the light. Saturation down with the blues all the way. That's all I'm doing right now. And now I'm gonna show you the technique, okay? It's a really simple technique, and you have seen me doing it a bunch of times because it's one of my favorite ways to create some depth into the images. And we need 3 masks, 2 background masks and 1 subject mask. So I'm gonna go with object. I like the object. It's most of the times cleaner than hitting on the subject tool in my personal experience. Now I'm gonna duplicate and invert it to have 1 background mask, and then I'm gonna duplicate this one here so I have my 3 masks. And we're gonna start with the background here to shape the light. And as I'm looking at my subject here, below the wings it's a bit darker, and I think the bird is slanted, so that means the sun is either coming from here or even from here. So in that case, I'm gonna add some brightness on this part here and darkness on this one here. So let's go with the first one, intersect mask with linear gradient, and I'm gonna add it here. I'm gonna go really strong with a really soft roll off, and I'm gonna down the contrast, down the clarity and the dehaze all the way. And now I'm gonna up the exposure and look at my histogram. If I'm gonna go all the way, dial it back a bit, and I'm gonna leave it here. Let's go to this one here, the second background mask, intersect with a linear gradient, do the same thing, opposite side, really soft roll off, maybe a bit more, why not, and just down with the exposure here, looking at my histogram. I don't have blacks, I don't have whites, nothing is clipped, everything lives in the midtones as you can see. So we're gonna go back into the tone curve in a second to have a bit more punchier and contrasty look. But right now we have added lots of depth here. Before I'm gonna go back to the bird, I need to look how the blues are popping in this image by pulling the blue slider back ever so slightly. I don't like the purple blue here, so let's go into the hues. Have it a bit of a tealish look or steel blue look. I love this one here. And maybe dial it down again. I'm gonna leave it here, okay. And now I'm gonna go back to my masks, to the bird here. I'm gonna zoom in and I'm gonna down the highlights a bit more, up the shadows, and I'm gonna increase the clarity. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to the HSL tab and play with the hues of the yellows here. I think I like to leave it at 0 and then look at the orange. Maybe just a tiny bit towards red, and I'm gonna saturate the orange a bit and the yellows. And now I'm gonna get a brush in another subject mask. I told you we're just gonna use 3. I have lied to you. I'm gonna use one more. Select object, because I wanna brighten up these parts here of the wings. Intersect with a brush, and I'm just gonna brush over it. I'm gonna brighten it up and I'm gonna desaturate it a bit, add a bit blue in it so it pops out even more. I'm gonna up with the whites, with the highlights, desaturate it a bit and temp towards blue. Nothing too crazy, somewhere around here. And now I'm gonna zoom out and before and after. Before and after, we have come a long way and it still sits in the midtones. Getting rid of that or adding a bit more contrast, we could go into the basics here and do that. Boom, spreading it out. But I don't like to use the contrast slider here. It's good, don't get me wrong, but I like to have a bit more flexibility, let's say it like that. So I'm gonna create a point here, 1 point here and 1 here. So we have the blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites. I'm gonna pull down the whites a bit. I'm gonna up the blacks here. And now I'm gonna create an S-curve here and up the whites. I'm looking at my histogram. Nothing too crazy. I do like the contrast on the bird. It has a bit of a overexposed look here. Nothing is clipped, but I'm gonna get back to the mask here. It's always a back and forth with the masks and the overall exposure. So let's go with this one here. Up the shadows, down with the highlights. Up the shadows. I'm zooming in, that's a bit better. And I'm gonna go to this part here. I'm gonna, on the wings, I'm gonna up the highlights here. And since the outer parts of the feathers of this beautiful bird is naturally contrasty and black, it already has a natural or visually natural contrast in it. I'm gonna go into the tone curve. I'm gonna up the midtones a bit, just a tiny bit. And now I'm gonna go back to my linear gradients again. And I'm gonna desaturate this one here. If I'm gonna go full ham, you see, I like a bit more clean blacks because there's blue in it. And on this one here as well, a little bit. And I'm gonna play with the exposure. In this image, I don't want anything to be clipped, so I'm gonna leave it here, before and after. The depth that I've created didn't come from the basic tab. As you can see, before and after, it all resulted from the masks here, before and after. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to use masks to create depth into your images, but if you have an image like this one here, before, It's so flat. It's just a subject in front of a plain background. If you have a foreground, a background, you then just have to create more contrast, because then everything else will fall into its place and add the specific depth. But in these images here, you can create your own depth. And with the masking tools, it's pretty simple. And in this image here, I'm gonna crop real quick. Oh, wait, I have received a comment asking why I'm not using the lens correction on import. In this image, I could use it because I can see a vignette here, a bit of a distorted look, and some chromatic aberrations. If I'm gonna go on 400, I can see a bit of purple here and yellow green up here, especially here, so we can get rid of that. Most of the times I'm not using it because I like the characteristics of a specific lens, but if it's distracting, for example the vignette in here, then I can use the lens correction before I'm doing any other adjustment. So let's do it right now. Lens correction, enable profile correction, and it should detect my lens. Let's check by pressing I, and again, it is the Sony E55 to 210mm f4.5. Yup, everything is perfect. So if I'm gonna go before and after, it got rid of the distortion and the vignette. And I can even use the amount slider here. And on the vignette, I'm even going to like 120. And for the chromatic aberration, if I'm gonna press on it, you can see the purples here will vanish. So I pressed it, boom. Especially here on really contrasty or on edges of of buildings or a subject, it's really visible. So now we can crop it. I'm gonna go with a 16:9 here. I'm gonna leave it here. Let's rotate it a bit. I'm gonna look at this line here a bit more. Okay, that's fine. And I'm not gonna touch the basics or anything to get a base look. As I told you earlier, I'm just gonna use a preset so it's a bit faster from my new Visionary pack. I'm gonna go with Suburban. I like this one here. It's a bit dark as always. After applying a preset, up the exposure and play with the temp, and then it should be ready to go. I like the look of the windows here and the, what is it called? The blinds. The clarity, I'm gonna reset it because it was like too glowy here on this preset. And I think I like that. Most importantly, I'm looking at the blues here while playing with the temp. Not too cool, but also not too much orange in the blues here. So I'm gonna leave it here. I like the look of this part here. It's some sort of a grayish blue, steelish blue, which I really like in architecture. Okay, now that we have the basics done, the exposure, we're gonna shape it by adding some masks. I'm gonna go with the sky. Let's go subject. I think it should detect it pretty well. It did. So I needed twice as well as 2 background masks. So I'm gonna duplicate this one, and then I'm gonna duplicate and invert this one, and I'm gonna duplicate this one. So we have 2 background and 2 subject masks. Let's go with the background masks. The first one, the light is hitting from the left, obviously. I'm intersecting it with a linear gradient. And if you want to have a straight gradient, you can hold down Shift. And as you can see, it's locked on if I'm letting go. And if I'm pressing it again, it's locked on. And I'm gonna go extreme again, really faded look, and down with the contrast, down with the clarity and the dehaze all the way. Up the exposure, looking at the histogram, it's opening up. I'm gonna leave it here, play with the mask again. Okay. This is good. And I can see a bit of yellow in here. I don't want that, so I'm gonna desaturate it. And now we're gonna do the same with this one here. With the second mask, intersect linear gradient. Hold down Shift, it would be really straight, but I don't want that. I want it a bit slanted and really faded. And now I'm just gonna pull down the exposure. Not too much. Nothing too crazy here. And on this one here, I think I went a bit crazy as well with the dehaze. We're gonna leave it here, okay. Now I'm just gonna play around with those two masks here to get the background right. So I'm gonna speed it up real quick. Now we're gonna do the same with the building. Intersect, linear gradient, down with the exposure. Just a little bit, nothing too crazy here, just on the edge of the building. The same with this one here, it's already like really bright. So I'm just gonna add a bit more dehaze here and a little bit of exposure, nothing too crazy, really subtle. And now I'm gonna go into the tone curve, play with the tone curve here. And in the basics, black was on -9. I'm gonna reset it. Up the shadows here. And this part of the building is like really, really bright. So I'm gonna use another subject mask here and pull down the highlights. Now we can get more of the orange from the sunset. I'm on -100, it's not enough, so I'm gonna go on the amount slider here. Right click on it, intersect and brush, and I'm just gonna brushing over this part here. Okay, I really like that. Before and after. And some would say this look is a bit too much, but for me, as always, it's personal preference. If you're taking your own images, edit them the way you want. Respect my style of editing as I respect yours. If you can learn anything from the tutorials that I'm putting out, which have my signature style or signature edit in them, then I'm more than happy. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out the Visionary pack, link is down in the description. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'm gonna get back to them ASAP. I'm gonna catch you up at the next one and stay creative.